Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how even a pro-Brexit jingoistic paper like The Telegraph is now having to talk about the success of Johnson's vaccine rollout being somewhat diminished as the EU, in an epic retelling of The Tortoise and the Hare, looks set to potentially finish the race to vaccinate their population before the UK. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, COVID in general was used to mask much of the devastating impacts of Brexit this year. But Boris Johnson was also fortunate in finding himself in the position of being able to contrast the vaccine rollout in the UK and the EU as a way of completely sinking a lot of Brexit arguments. He said that if we hadn't left the EU, we wouldn't have been able to manage the vaccine programme in our own way, and we would have floundered like the EU had done. Now, this was nonsense, as EU common rules don't stipulate healthcare provisions. We should know this. We have different healthcare systems in different EU countries. But it was an easy lie to tell, because people understand that, well, EU members have common rules. People could also see that all EU countries were allowing their vaccine programme to be overseen by the EU Commission. There wasn't any outliers there. And people could also see that the EU Commission had not been as quick off the mark. So for people who don't have the first idea what the EU is and isn't all about, which is the ignorance that allowed Brexit in the first place, you could see how the lie could be so powerful. And this completely muted criticism of Brexit. That's because COVID is a very serious concern. The majority of the population appreciate just how serious a threat this is to their health. And even those facing up to the damage of Brexit, who would be looking at, yeah, this is really bad, would then think, but we got a better vaccine roll out of it, and that is our immediate, that is our clear immediate danger in the UK. So, that's a benefit worth the costs. They just aren't aware that we could have rolled out the vaccines our own way as EU members, just like we administer every other aspect of healthcare provision as well. The media weren't informing them of this. But there was another benefit for Johnson as well, because not only did it diminish attacks on his Brexit, it enhanced his personal reputation. It made him look like the European leader who got it right when all the others got it wrong. This is why the polls look like they do. This is why all the talks of leadership challenge have melted away. It will be fleeting. And I still say a more effective takedown of Brexit by Labour would have improved how those polls look. But at the end of the day, there was no crushing the Tories in the polls with this set of circumstances playing out. No way at all. And it could have been so different, because Johnson achieved it by happily importing tens of millions of doses of vaccine from EU production facilities, but not a single dose was exported from the UK. He denied that we had an export block. But although it wasn't technically a block, it effectively was. After all, the world is crying out for as many doses as they can get. So why were we importing so much and not exporting any? Not one in return. It was also caused by taking epic chances. Now, when the rollout began, the advice was to have the second dose administered 4 weeks after the first. Now, we didn't do that. We gambled on getting more people some protection than following the guidance and getting the most vulnerable fully protected as quickly as possible. Now, in the end, it was a gamble that paid off. Now, I said at the time, it was a gamble worth trying. Given how serious our second wave was, it wasn't a reckless gamble. But it was still a gamble. Had it not paid off, our rollout programme would now be in a right old mess. So a mix of greed, luck, and a failure by the EU to be as aggressive in their early days paid off for Johnson. But we may be seeing history repeat itself. So, do you remember last March when the Conservatives and other associated media were pointing and laughing at Europe for the way the pandemic was laying them low? Italy and Spain in particular. Well, it wasn't going to happen here, of course not. And then it did. And then a few weeks later, Boris Johnson announced, after he'd recovered from having COVID himself, that making international comparisons wasn't appropriate, even though they were somehow appropriate before our rate of infections and deaths was the highest in Europe. Same thing may be happening now. The EU recognised that they dropped the ball and adopted a more aggressive stance. They are a much larger and more powerful organisation, and now even The Telegraph, which is a pro-Brexit and pro-Conservative paper, is reporting that the rollout in the EU is accelerating away. Sure, we got a head start, that it might be a close run finish. I should also point out that analogies with a race are generally in poor taste because this is a global pandemic. We will not beat it until the entire world is vaccinated. We're all in it together, and if we behaved like that, we'd all come out of it together much more quickly. But this, unfortunately, is how politics works in the UK. The Conservatives turn everything into a competition, and so we have to play the political game to defeat them and get a worthy government in place. Should that even be possible? The EU were, even towards the start, having more people per capita vaccinated than the UK. When you saw reports to the contrary in the media, they always meant having had one dose. Because we gambled on vaccinating more people once than everyone fully with 2 doses, we could fiddle the stats to make it look better. But now they are genuinely better. As I say, our rollout gathered such pace by the fact that we were taking doses from other places and not giving any back in return, that we have actually stolen a march. But now a combination of the EU accelerating their rollout and supply issues hitting the UK, as our earlier greed seems to have backfired on us, mean that the EU in general, and certainly some key EU countries, are reported to potentially be overtaking the UK at some point. Now, for my mind, this doesn't need to happen. See, once we get to the point where there are countries in Europe even at the same level of rollout, the crap about Johnson's brilliant wheeze should have much less power. Brexit allowed us to do better on the vaccine rollout. We didn't do better. France have vaccinated just as many. The Netherlands have vaccinated their population before us, and so on. Because I think it will be very difficult to explain to people that we could have done our own thing with the vaccine rollout as EU members. It seems like a waste of breath to keep trying to explain that. Let people think that if we'd stayed in the EU that we would have been tied to the EU's rollout. No problem, because in a few months' time, this won't be a problem. Not only will they be completing their rollout at the same time as us, and ahead of us in some key countries, but they'll have paid way less money for it. Way less. Part of the reason why we were able to nick so many doses was not by putting in technical export blocks, was by paying a huge premium for them to put pressure on the companies to supply us and not others. People may think that was worth it initially. Will they still think it was worth it when we didn't even complete our vaccination programme any more quickly? And if, as the Telegraph is reporting, we see headlines of France overtaking the UK, which, you know, then you can blow this mindless vaccine nationalism away in a stroke. But I have to say on that particular case, I'm not seeing it, to be honest. You know, I can well believe that there are going to be some countries, the Netherlands the most obvious, that will overtake us. I don't know where the Telegraph are getting this idea that it could be France, and in a few weeks from. The current rate of vaccinations in France is about the same as the UK, but it's not greater. It's actually slightly less. And they're also way behind in terms of percentage of population vaccinated. Only the Netherlands has a much greater rate of rollout than the UK. So if anyone is going to overtake us, unless someone else has some spectacular mechanism that's about to come on board, it will be the Dutch. And don't expect to see it shouted from the rooftops in the British media. It's like when some EU countries had doubts about the AstraZeneca vaccine, and the British papers attacked the EU as being bitter, even though the EU never said anything about the AstraZeneca vaccine other than take it if you're offered. This was individual countries that happens to be part of the EU. But the British media, you know, don't distinguish between individual sovereign countries in the EU and the EU collective. The EU itself has fully supported use of the vaccine. And any potential side effects, which come with every pharmaceutical, I mean, you read the list of side effects that come with some ibuprofen or paracetamol or something, it's like horrendous. But the chances of side effects are way less than actually becoming infected with COVID. Small chance of blood clots, much higher chance with COVID. But the point is that when British authorities started to raise the same issues, there was no attacking them as bitter. It's, oh, our brilliant British doctors have discovered this thing. What, you mean this thing you were attacking the EU for discovering a few months ago? There's largely just silence about some EU countries talking about the same thing. Same thing will happen here. It will not be so much a retraction as a silence falling. But, you know, that'll do, because in order to start making headway in explaining the deeply damaging nature of Brexit, We need to keep making the case that it isn't just that it's a net drawback. There aren't any Brexit benefits at all, not one. Some think the vaccine rollout is one. It isn't. But like I said before, it's too difficult to persuade people of this because it would require explaining how the EU works to millions against a background noise of disinformation from both the government and the media. But point out that even doing things our own way, whether we could have done that in the EU or not, did not ultimately pay off, and we can make some progress. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.